It was working. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday meeting of the Rotary Club of Gainesville here at the Cade Museum. I need to remind everyone to please silence your cell phones, and if you are joining us via YouTube, please remember to send an email to info@rotary.org so we can log your participation. And now I'd like to ask Mr. Pete Inwall to come up and lead us in the song and pledge.
Thank you, Dave. Today is, for those that don't know, today is July 14th. That is Bastille Day. In France, they celebrate it like we celebrate July 4th. And for some in France, Bastille Day represented a pain in the neck. And for others, it represented getting ahead. So after that, we're going to sing God Bless America. Through the night, from the mountains to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me turn it up. Turn it back up more.
Yep, okay, here we go. Thanks, Tom. PA, always a challenge around here, it seems. But I'm glad we got a couple of experts supporting us. And now let's welcome Kevin Thorpe, providing our invocation via Zoom. Kevin?
May we pray. Lord, we are grateful for this day. It presents us with so many reminders. Thank you for informing us that our earth has no sorrow, that your heaven cannot heal. We thank you in advance for today's presentation and the reminder that peace is not only the absence of conflict, but the attitude we must possess in order to maintain it. It is for your sake and for your glory we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, and now as we move into the introduction of guests and visiting Rotarians, please be seated unless you have a guest or are a visiting Rotarian. I'd like to just remind everyone, just give me one second, Rebecca, as you introduce your guest. I was asked to just mention this, and I want to do it delicately, but with intention, that we have a long-standing policy in the club that we do not allow political announcements or any kind of candidacy going on. You can bring someone that's running for office, that's fine, but we can't have you introducing folks and talking about what they're running for. So just be aware of that. There's actually a $20 fine for that. So just to be clear. Thank you. Rebecca, please.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Nagy, and my guest today is Katie Limley. We just realized from Eric that it's been an entire year since she spoke to our club. It seemed like yesterday. But some of you will remember that Katie talked about her work as director of the Gainesville Fine Arts Association and all the wonderful work they do with schools and the community. So we're happy to have her today.
Good afternoon, Greg Young. My guest today is Jeffrey Forbes. He is the Development Coordinator at the Alachua Conservation Trust, a wonderful organization.
I'm back. Linda is not a visitor. She is now a new member. But Linda, maybe do stand up so they can see you. And yeah, she was just voted into membership at the board meeting last night. An attorney, retired, lives out in Waldo on some land where she likes to have her animals. And she writes and will be publishing more of her stories.
I have invited Bethany Yonkers. She is originally from Philadelphia, and she came to me through Layla and Jahi, who put together the big Arts and Culture Festival every year. And she came and participated, and she's going through her transition with, as many millennials are doing, I guess. And I'm really happy that she decided to come.
Good afternoon. I'm Dana Williams. A lot of you knew me as Dana Miller, but I got remarried. My guest today is Jerry Cade. That last name may sound familiar. He's a commercial sales rep for Waste Pro. I also work for Waste Pro. He's... Oh, did it pass last night? Okay, and now he's a new member. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Good afternoon, Rotarians. Jay Nordquist. I have as my guest today Bill Edgar. Bill is with the Vistage Group, which is he is the chair of that organization here in North Central Florida, which is an organization that has multiple CEOs that meet on a monthly basis. So please welcome Bill.
Good morning, Rotarians. Amber Miller. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker for today. This is Eric Estling. He's the Executive Director for the River Phoenix Center for Peacebuilding. And we also have their beautiful founder, Ms. Hart Phoenix, up here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Don, for bringing the mic around, and welcome visiting Rotarians, guests, and new member Linda. Now, I'd like to move on to announcements, and the first announcement will be Linda Reinhardt to tell us about a fun event coming up.
Okay, quiz time. How many people here like wine? Okay. How many people are members of the Rotary Wine Fellowship? Okay, that's the numbers are down. So, how many people knew that the Rotary Wine Fellowship, the International Fellowship, has a District 6970 chapter now? Okay, there we go. So, the reason I'm sharing all of this is that the chapter's been around for about a year and a half now, and they're doing their first event in Gainesville on August 29th at Embers Wood Grill. It's going to be a 4-course wine pairing dinner. There's going to be a national rep that's going to come and talk about the wines. Registration for wine club members will open tomorrow to sign up for it, and it is limited to 40 people. If you join the wine club fellowship, the membership is for you and your spouse, so you automatically, they're included, and you get this fun little pin. It's a corkscrew pin. It's very coveted. And so if anybody's interested in attending that event or joining the fellowship, please come see me. I do have more information. We will open it up to local club members if we don't get 40 wine club members, but we do expect to do that. So let me know.
Thanks, Linda. It sounds awesome. And now I'd like to ask Helen Gilstrom to come up and explain the decorations behind me.
If you need an explanation, you haven't been here before. This is the kickoff for the Undy 500 or Undy 26. We have long ago exceeded 500. But anyhow, you know, last week Jay talked about, President Jay said, we kind of had too many asks. People felt kind of a little bit overdone. And that's not necessarily bad, but we don't want to tarnish our big events. So, you know, we talked about it. I said, well, maybe we should lay off for a year. Well, no, we can't do that. At this point, we have some schools that are really looking for our support. This is our 10th year collecting underwear. So I think that's an achievement in itself. So, in light of that, Lynn Black said she'd come. She brings her wonderful display and her big smile. She is a business partnership specialist for the Alachua County Schools, which means she connects, you know, businesses and us with needs. And she's really good at it, obviously. Anyhow, we're glad to have her here, and she's going to tell you more than I can tell you.
Thank you, Helen. I think I need to, okay, thank you. Can you guys hear me? So, hi, I'm Lynn. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited to see you all in person. Well, we gave away 2,000 pairs of underpants last year, so I would say I think about you frequently throughout the year as I roll them up and put them in their little baggies and ship them to the nurses. The nurses fill out a link and tell me what they need. We do serve all 38 of our schools from K through 12. You can imagine that most of those sizes are clustered, but it's a full variety of gender and age that we're serving. There are all kinds of reasons kids have accidents, and you can imagine what those are: illness. Sometimes it's poverty. 70% of our students are qualified for free and reduced lunch in Alachua County. So there's a need for all kinds of stuff. And we're really grateful to be able to provide underwear to the nurses. The nurses send us thank yous over, you know, in the little blips in the end. I give space in the sheet where they order the underwear to tell us, you know, some feedback. And I usually put that in a Word doc and mail it to Helen so she can share with you. But, you know, it's already embarrassing for students, for people at any age, to have an accident. To be able to quickly get taken care of by the nurse and return to your class with dignity, and to miss less instructional time. This is so important. The time really adds up. If a parent comes and gets a kid, they don't bring them back. So they miss the whole day if they have to go home and change. Many parents can't leave work. They can't leave and come get them. They may not have transportation. Their job may not allow it. So even though it seems simple, it's a basic human dignity to have food and clean clothes and shelter. And you make a big difference in helping provide that for our students. Our nurses and teachers are always digging in their own pockets to provide from whatever salary they have. So it's really a great benefit to them, and they're very grateful for it. So I also wanted to say that, so I told you about the 2,000 pairs this year. I don't know how many last year, but probably close to that. We do get requests throughout the year. I send out a link and I remind them again in January they can restock. So one of the other benefits that you might not be aware of is that your civic engagement and commitment to this community, to giving to our schools in this manner, inspires other donors for me. It's one of my favorite stories, the Undy 500 story. It's not about 500 pairs of underwear, it's about ready, set, go, Undy 500, and people laugh. And I use it to tell people that I'm asking for gift cards from when I go to solicit staff and teacher appreciation prizes. A small business may not have the money, and I don't want them to feel bad that they don't, their margins are small. That makes sense to me, that could happen. So I give them other ideas, and everybody loves that the Rotary Club does Undy 500. So you're inspiring other groups and individuals in our community to also give, and with other ideas. We now have, I just put together 480 pouches of hygiene kits for girls at our schools and shipped them out to nurses. We had another small group that wanted to be anonymous give us hygiene products because some kids don't have them. They don't have, so I bought a bunch of little deodorants and shipped those out to the high school nurses so that they could give them out. We have school supply drives, food drives. Our winter food basket is a huge thing. We make sure that during the 2 weeks that kids are home, that's a hardship to not get there any food during that time. So we send them home with a box of, variety of dry goods and things that they can use canned and not too much fresh. Over the summer, we've been giving away fresh food at locations daily. About 15 locations, I think. So they pack them every day, fresh food and canned food, so that our kids don't go hungry during the summer. So there's a lot of things that are happening, and you're a big part of that, and your generosity, really, your thinking about more than yourselves, really, right? You're a civic organization. Your commitment to being generous in our community inspires more generosity. And so I'm doubly appreciative, not only for your generosity for the last 10 years, but also because you're one of my best stories to get other people to donate. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
We really appreciate the work that you do. And Helen, goodness, you've been working on this so hard for so long with Linda. Reinhardt's been involved, I know, a lot too. But Dana is going to come up and quickly tell us about another event that's approaching.
Hey guys, how many people here like to bowl? How many other people like to watch people bowl just for the laughs? How about the beer? No, I wanted to tell you for the Greater Gainesville Club, they're putting together a Rotary Clubs of Gainesville function October 12th. It's going to be called Strikeout Polio. All the money goes to the Polio Plus campaign, and it will be at the Splits Bowling Center. So on your tables are ways that you can register or register teams, and what the sponsorship benefits are if you choose to want to sponsor a team of 4. So I'm going to be, or somebody will be announcing this over the next weeks, but if you have questions, I'll work with this club to get our participation, and we'll all support polio together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, we've got one more announcement, and I'm just going to handle this one. How many folks have participated in Rotary Leadership Institute, RLI? That's pretty good. Well, we've got an RLI session approaching on August 1st, and the neat thing about this one is we are the host. We're the host city. It's going to be at the Santa Fe College Blunt Center. It's a Saturday. I think they do a breakfast at around 7, but the actual sessions begin at 8 and it winds up at 3:30. For those of you that don't know about this, Jay wanted to be sure we let everyone know how neat this is. It's an opportunity not only to learn about what Rotary does globally and more about Rotary International, but it's also an opportunity, sitting in these classroom settings, having discussions with other folks in the district to learn about ways to improve our club right here. So it's just neat. I've participated in RLI and I've enjoyed it and gotten a lot out of it. So I encourage you to consider it. July 26th is the deadline, and we can probably get a link pushed out. President Jay, I know you can find it on DACDB for whomever likes DACDB. But that concludes our announcements. So without further ado, I know everyone is ready to welcome a soccer extraordinaire, my favorite Swede. He is an American, but I like to call him my favorite Swede, President Jay Nordquist.
He only knows one. That makes it easy. Thanks, David. So welcome everybody. Thanks all the guests that are here. Thank you for being here. We'd love to have you. If you like what you see and you like what we do, we'd love to have you back and join our organization. Speaking of joining the organization, as Rebecca has mentioned, we've got some new members. We have 3 new members, and so if you're in the room, I would like for you again to stand up and be recognized. So we have Jerry Cade, who was introduced by Dana. Thank you, Dana, for bringing Jerry. And we have Linda Carley. And I think a lot of you have met Evans, Pierre Antoine, I think is the way I pronounce his last name. Evans has also joined us. He's been at our socials, and so another great addition to our club. So really appreciate you all. And would encourage the new members to get involved in committees, get involved in anything. If you have a passion that you want to get involvement in, bring it. Bring it. You know, this is a club that does incredible things, so we want to encourage all of that. So yesterday we had a board meeting, and you may have noticed that you have not gotten your dues statement for this quarter. In fact, I've had a couple of emails saying, did I miss it? Well, no, you didn't miss it. We met last night, we talked about the budget, and you'll be pleased to know that your Rotary dues are only going to increase by $1, and you can blame Rotary International for that. So $1 per quarter is what the dues are going up, and that's to cover some additional expenses that RI has. But other than that, the dues are going to be staying the same. So what I would encourage everybody to do is to take a good look at your do-goodery and your foundation contributions and make sure that those are up to date. And maybe since we're not increasing our fees, maybe you can increase your giving. So I would encourage you to look at that. We also gave a $1,000 do-goodery contribution to the Dominican Republic dental service trip. This is an amazing trip, and Dr. Randy is out here. He's been on the trip before. There he is, sitting there. This is basically a group of UF students that will be accompanied by 7 dentists, and they're going to go to the Dominican Republic, and they're going to do dental work in underserved communities. So we donated $1,000 to them, and they come up with a lot of money on their own. It's a great program. It does great things, and so let's give ourselves a hand for doing that. So I think that's it. The Leadership Institute that David spoke about, I think that is really important. You know, there's a lot to learn about Rotary that you don't know, and I think, again, what David mentioned also is that when we have these opportunities and they come to town, they used to not historically come here. So I think it's important that we, as clubs, locally show up for those meetings. So I would encourage anybody that has an interest in attending to please sign up, go to DACDB, or maybe we can push out a link as well. It is coming, again, as a reminder, that is August 1st, that is a Saturday, and I would encourage anybody that has an interest in finding out more about Rotary and interacting with other members of the Gainesville area and then also throughout the district. So I would encourage you to do that. So with that, that's about all the announcement that I have. I'm going to bring up Amber Miller, who's going to introduce our speaker.
All right, I'm going to make this fast, so we've got plenty of time to hear from our incredible speaker today. So Eric Estling is the Managing Director of the River Phoenix Center for Peacebuilding. He is a certified mediator and holds a master's degree in peace, mediation, and conflict research from Tampere University in Finland. His graduate research on grassroots and community-based peacebuilding in Gainesville, along with his years of professional experience working with youth in California and Oregon public schools, has strengthened his faith in the power of relationships and shared responsibility to transform individuals as well as communities. Eric is honored to bring his passion for conflict resolution and community empowerment to his leadership role at the River Phoenix Center for Peacebuilding. So welcome, Eric.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, Rotarians. Oh, thank you so much. Won't have much luck without that. Perfect. Well, hello, I am Eric Estling. I do work at the River Phoenix Center for Peacebuilding here in Gainesville. Who has ever heard of the River Phoenix Center for Peacebuilding? Amazing. Okay, well, perfect. Well, then I won't even go into detail about that. We'll jump right into it. I do want to share a very brief story, though, about kind of how Rotary connects me personally to some of this work. So Amber did share that I graduated from Tampere University in Finland. And the only reason that I ended up in Finland, honestly, was because of Rotary Club. I was, at the time when I applied, I was living in Eugene, Oregon, and I was quite involved with the Rotary Club there. And who has ever heard of the Rotary International Peace Fellowship Program? Yeah. So I was amazed to learn that one of the amazing things that Rotary does is it sends people to graduate school to learn how to become peace builders. And, you know, it's a very competitive program. It's a big investment, which I totally understand. And the truth is, I didn't actually make it. Womp womp. But the person that got it from our district in my stead was this incredible woman doing amazing work in Afghanistan. So huge props to her and the amazing work that I'm sure she's still doing to this day. With that said, though, it was that realization that you could go and study how to become a peace builder at the graduate level that it was Rotary that taught me that. And it was with that understanding that I applied to Finland, and I started studying this work at that level. And then that's what brought me back to Gainesville, where I was an intern at the River Phoenix Center for Peacebuilding and applying some of those things that I had been learning. So I really personally appreciate the Rotary Club for that part of my journey. So today, we're going to talk about how communities can build peace and what that really means. And I just want to shout out, I'm sorry I forgot the name, but whoever gave our invocation this morning, who was it? Kevin Thorpe. Thank you so much for that. It was so beautiful, and it really actually sets the stage for what it is that I want to talk about, which is that peace building isn't just something that happens, you know, between world leaders. You know, they come together. We see some of that going on with Iran right now, and we think, okay, that's what peace building is. But really, peace building is not about negotiating treaties or you know, United Nations presentations. It's about what happens between us as individuals. It's what happens in community. It's how we build and strengthen that shared connection that then becomes the key resource that helps us move above whatever conflict may arise. And so that's really the core distinction of this work. And so I really appreciated that invocation, Kevin. Thank you for that. So you all are familiar with the River Phoenix Center, so I won't spend too much time. Actually, at the very end, since I know time is a little short, if we have a little bit of time, I'll tell you some of the exciting things that we're working on right now. But I'll start here, and hopefully this can be kind of a conversation. I'm hoping this can be a conversation with you all, so feel free to just shout out. But when you hear the word conflict, what are some words or phrases that come to your mind? What do you think of when you hear the word conflict? Anger, what was it? Misunderstanding, problem, war, injustice, disagreement. I love it. That's good. We could do this all day. So those are, would we say, largely positive words or largely negative words? Negative, right? And many of us have been taught, you know, enculturated, whatever it may be, to avoid conflict, right? Conflict is a thing to be avoided. It is something that we should look out for, and if it's coming, we should go the other way. I'm certainly, you know, I grew up with that idea and that tendency myself. I was a big-time conflict avoider. But through my work, one of the things that I've realized is that I've grown in my understanding of what conflict can be. I don't really see it as a problem anymore. I don't see conflict as a thing to be avoided. In fact, the word that I would use now when I think about conflict is opportunity. And that's really well put by this gentleman named Dominic Barter. Dominic Barter is a restorative justice practitioner and thought leader. He works in Brazil, largely within prisons and carceral settings. And he says this about conflict. He says, rather than be dangerous, conflict holds within it vital messages regarding unmet needs and areas of necessary change. Given this understanding, safety is increased, not by avoiding conflict, but by moving toward it with the intention of hearing the messages within. This is a big paradigm shift, actually, for many of us, myself included, right? That safety is increased when we move toward the conflict, not when we run the other way, not when we avoid it. And in fact, many of us can probably think of instances in our own lives where we've avoided conflict and it's gotten much worse, right? But what does it mean to move toward it, right? It's not moving toward it in a way that makes the conflict a worse situation for ourselves or for each other, but moving toward it in such a way where we're able to hear the underlying messages within. In other words, moving toward it in the right way. This is the first step that makes peace possible. In order to think about that a little bit, I like this analogy of a firefighter, right? If my house is on fire, I'm not running towards the fire. I'm running away from it. I'm running as far and as fast as I possibly can. But there are people out there who run towards the fire. They run towards the problem. They run towards the danger. So what are some things that firefighters may have that enable them to move toward the fire when I'm running away? Training, I love it. What else? Courage, I love it, absolutely. And it does take courage to move toward conflict. That's one thing I've definitely learned through my time at RPCP. Yes, what else? So training, courage, tools, I love it. The right tools and skills. Teamwork, I love it. It's not a singular exercise. It's something we do in community. And so this is what is needed in order to build peace, in order to realize the possibility of peace. People need the tools, they need the training, they need the opportunity, the experience, the courage to grow in their ability to handle that difficult situation, right? Now, what's interesting about that is that those things can be grown. They can be developed. You know, it's not an inevitability that the house will burn down. And it's not an inevitability that every conflict will become escalated and turn into something destructive. In fact, just as I said, some of you may have an experience where you've had a conflict that you tried to avoid that became worse. I wonder if anyone in here has ever had an experience where they engaged with a conflict in the right way, and not only did it make it better, but it was even better than it was before. Has that ever happened? Yeah, that's happened to me for sure. So, in other words, communities need these skills. They need the opportunities to practice, to learn, to grow in their own empowerment, and to have the skill sets needed to engage with that conflict. Also want to talk about this metaphor, the idea of a ripple. So if I drop a pebble into a pond, there is an initial splash that happens, right? And conflict is like that. Many of us think of conflict as kind of isolated, like an isolated instance. So in other words, if two folks in this room got into a fight right now at this Rotary Club meeting, these two guys right here, if they got into a fight, certainly they would both be impacted by that situation, right? But it really doesn't just involve them. Who else would be impacted by that? All of us, right? Their families, all the Rotarians, maybe even Rotary Club International. We hear about it somewhere. The Gainesville Sun, I'm sure, would have something to say. So we all get impacted by these things about with conflict. And when we think about some of the really big conflicts happening in our world today, some of those wide-reaching conflicts, those ripples of impact are wide. They're really wide and really impactful. In fact, some of these can feel like tidal waves, not like ripples at all. And so one of the other things that's needed when we think about how to grow peace is how do we look beyond the initial situation, and how do we understand the impact, and how do we bring some peace to those levels of the conflict as well. Another way of thinking about this idea of the ripple is this idea of the social ecological model. Now, this came out of work in public health, but it really applies well to peace and conflict as well. So when there is conflict, or where peace is possible, is kind of in all of these domains. There's the peace that's needed individually. So in other words, like, what do I need inside myself to be at peace with myself, to be able to be self-aware, to be able to have the right skills and strategies I need to get my needs met. There's relational or interpersonal peace, right? So how do we bring people together when there's been a conflict to resolve the issue, to repair the harm? There's community-based peace. How do we grow peace at a community level? How do we create the conditions where community members can live in peaceful relationship with each other? And then society. What kinds of policies or systems are helpful or constructive to help facilitate a peaceful world? We believe at RPCP that all of these domains are interdependent, right? In other words, if we're growing peace individually, we're growing peace interpersonally. If we're growing peace interpersonally, we're growing peace community-wise, et cetera, right? That these depend on each other. And so when we think about those ripples, we have to think about all of these different levels at once. This is, by the way, one of the things that I appreciate so much about the Rotary Club and you all, is that the work you do is so wide-ranging that you're meeting all of these different needs at these different levels at once. You may not think of yourselves this way, but I think of Rotarians as peace builders for that reason. All right. So we want to talk a little bit about what's needed then in order to grow peace. And we at RPCP like to use this metaphor of the iceberg as a very common example of, or a metaphor for how we understand human beings. You know, humans are kind of like icebergs in the sense that we can only see a very small amount, right? If you're floating by on a boat and you see an iceberg, you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg above the waterline, right? And humans are a lot like that. There are probably some things you can tell about me by looking at me, but the vast majority of who I am is hidden. You would only know it if you got to know me a little bit better, if you knew some of my story, if you understood my hopes, my dreams, my fears. Those things you only find out by having a conversation with me, because they're not immediately on the surface. But one thing we can see of human beings in our community right now are the things that we do, or in other words, our behaviors. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you for a little audience participation again. What are some harmful, destructive, antisocial behaviors that we see right here in our community that lead to conflict or harm? Aggression. Dentistry? It does hurt sometimes. It is true. It can be quite hurtful at times. Yeah, that's true. Not exactly what I meant, but I do understand what you're saying, I think. Yes. Avoidance. Poverty. Right? What about the things that people are actually doing that maybe are like hurtful to our society? Robbery, violence, gun violence, discrimination, speeding, road rage. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we see a lot of these kinds of, for lack of a better word, problems, right? Dentistry included. But what we don't see are the things underneath the waterline that drive those harmful behaviors, right? And so what does drive those? What really drives those from our perspective are unmet needs, certain feelings, experiences like life experiences that drive those behaviors that we see on the surface. And so if we're not actually looking at what some of those needs may be, we're really not addressing the behavior in the right way. So think about some of those harmful behaviors we just said: road rage, gun violence, robbery, etc. What are some underlying needs that may be driving those things, even if we don't know for sure? Poverty, homelessness, addiction, family conflicts, insecurities. There was something back there? Racism, psychological problems, right? Unmet mental health needs, maybe. Someone just having a bad day. It happens. Say again? Disenfranchisement. You're right. And so if we're not able to really think about what some of those drivers may be, right? Again, it's not about excusing what's on top. It's about understanding what's on top, right? And so when we think about building peace, we also like to think about the water in this example. The water represents what's holding that big old chunk of ice up. In this case, it's resources that can help to meet some of those underlying needs and experiences. So what might be some resources right here in this community, internal or external, that could help to meet some of those underlying needs and experiences that folks just named? Underwear program. Yeah. What was it? Helping Hands. Community mental health. Recovery programs. Did you say poverty programs? Oh, heart program. Oh, art. Yes, I love it. Absolutely, art and creative expression. And food bank. Yes. Faith communities. Safe communities. Rotary Club. Absolutely. And here's kind of the beautiful thing, is that when we think about building peace, someone actually told me once that the definition of peace building from their perspective was narrowing the gap between a need and a resource. Narrowing the gap between a need and a resource. And what's kind of beautiful about that is it means that we don't actually have to fix every problem, right? We just need to create conditions and spaces where these needs can be revealed and where they can be connected with helpful resources that can help people choose different behaviors. Because we believe honestly that behavior is a strategy for meeting an underlying need. I'll say that again because that's really important. Behavior is a strategy for meeting an underlying need. It doesn't mean that it always has to be a good strategy. It doesn't mean that it has to be a pro-social strategy, but it is a strategy. And if we can understand that strategy, we can help people find other ways to get those needs met. This is a list, a non-exhaustive list, by the way, of a list of universal needs from the Center for Nonviolent Communication. And the idea here is that these things are kind of non-negotiable. If these are not being met for people in their lives, people will try to find a way to get those needs met one way or another, right? And you might be looking at the list right now and think, oh, that feels really met in my life right now. Maybe you just had some food and you're feeling quite good on the food, right? But maybe there's some other needs on the list that feel unmet or undermet in your life at the moment. And it might be worth thinking about how that impacts the way you relate to other people, relate to yourself, right? And if there's a way that you can get those needs met, here's what we've found at RPCP, is that if people can just become aware of their needs or have a space where those needs can be understood, heard, and revealed, then what's possible is that we can, as a community, find ways to meet those needs for each other. Often, though, people aren't even aware that they have needs or that they deny that they have needs. And in those cases, they just go through the world acting a certain way, right? And so part of this is like raising awareness, and part of this is creating space where people can explore what those might be for themselves. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so a quick little update about RPCP and what we're doing and what our work is about is that, you know, much of our work falls into these 4 interdependent pillars. So we do work in restorative justice and restorative practices. So that's where if there's been a harm or like some sort of a conflict, bringing people together to talk about what happened, what the impact has been, and then importantly, how we can repair the situation and how we can prevent it from happening again. So this is like a less punitive approach towards trying to resolve, you know, human conflict and harm that we see in our community. Trauma responsive approaches, we see that, I didn't even get to talk about this, but a big one under the iceberg for many of our community members is trauma. And so we find it as absolutely foundational to understanding trauma as a way of understanding conflict. Because if you understand how our brains react to stress, it really helps you understand how we can react more positively to conflict. A social emotional learning, which is all about growing our own skills and strategies around conflict resolution, communication, self-awareness, self-management, etc. And then dialogue, bringing people together in a space where they can talk about what they're experiencing, what they're expecting, and how they understand themselves and each other. A couple quick examples of some of these things in practice and what they look like. So we have our Neighborhood PAC project, which is Peace Action Community Team. This is where we're working in low-income communities and neighborhoods. Right now we're working in Oakview, residences at Oakview and Majestic Oaks, training a group of neighbors as peacemakers within those communities directly. We have RJ Africa, which stands for Restorative Justice Africa. We're working with folks in northern Uganda. These are South Sudanese refugees living in northern Uganda who are using restorative justice and restorative practices to solve community conflict that they experience. And then we have the Police Youth Dialogue, which is a program that happens right here in Alachua County, where we bring together young people and law enforcement officers to talk with each other about what they experience, what they expect of each other, and how they can build some more safety and community together. And what the common theme, the common takeaway in all of these, I'd love to tell you more about it, but I also recognize that, you know, the point of today is not to be a commercial, but I'd love to tell you more about it if you're interested. But the common theme, the takeaway that I want you to walk away with here is that in all of these cases, it's not providing an answer that's actually what's needed. It's providing a space, right? When we bring together young people and law enforcement officers together, we don't tell the young people what to think of the police. We don't tell the police what to think of young people. We just bring together folks who really just have trouble trusting each other into a space where they can be heard and understood. And by doing that, it's them. It's their connection that then becomes the foundation for a more peaceful relationship. And so I offer that to you all to think about. How can you all in your own life or Rotary as an organization create spaces where communities can feel heard, can feel understood, and then build their own authentic connections in the conflicts that they experience? And I think that's it for my time. So I know it's a short presentation. My name is Eric. You can reach me at eric@centerforpeacebuilding.org. And if we have time for questions, I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Eric,
Whoa. There you go.
Sound like a foghorn. Eric, what's your primary source of funding for the organization, and how can people like us help?
We are totally donation oriented. I mean, we do at times get lucky with a grant here and there, but yes, we're always accepting donations. I'm sure on our website, centerforpeacebuilding.org, you can find ways to donate directly there if you like. Was that the question? Yeah. Thank you for that. Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Eric. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes,
Is it on?
loud and clear.
Well, it's good to see Hart here. It's good to see you, and the work you do for the South Sudanese is very important. I'm very familiar with what you did there. My question is that individual level, because how you bring peace, and it's going to be a two question. If you don't have answers to it, it's okay. It's easy, my experience, to work as individual, but the society is so polarized, so it become group, which make it impossible to do any kind of peace. So also, what do you do when, let's say, a dictator is the one pushing for oppression? There's no room for peace, and you cannot get rid of that individual who is holding the power. And it's hard to make a peace because, one, they have the power to continue the oppression. So how you do that? And finally, it's an example of what's going on today. Particularly, I'm pretty sure you've been familiar with what's happening in the last week. In 4th of July was Nolan Well case, which is there's that retributive justice or injustice, and it become a grouping. Now, how do you polarize? I mean, the society is polarized. How you pull it back to be more individual based, where the forgiveness actually happen. But when you have two groups, and in this case, everybody got their social media analysis, and this case is out of control, and there's a lot of issues. So how do you even bring the community with this just one case that could go either way? Okay. So
Great question. Part of what comes to my mind actually is thinking about kind of like that social ecological model that I showed earlier. One of the things that brought me to RPCP, and I should have actually introduced Hart, and I'm so sorry. Hart, would you stand up? This is our co-founder and board president. This is Hart Phoenix. Yes. Yeah. One of the things that brought me to the center and to the work that Hart and her husband Jeffrey were doing here in Gainesville is that in my international study, so in Finland, they were mostly looking at international level peace building, right? They were looking at how do we get countries and kind of how do we build peace in the context of dictatorships and those kinds of questions, right? And what was interesting about it is that it all came down to the same point, which is that it very rarely happens at the top. Almost never, actually. That peace actually happens near the bottom. And so, to your point, as difficult as it is, and it is difficult, it is incredibly difficult, I think the answer is to create opportunities for people to be humanized with each other, right? And so when we think about these really big, societal level conflicts, polarized, deeply polarized and entrenched conflicts, that entrenchment makes it very difficult to humanize. And that's a reality that we have to navigate as a world. But there are still opportunities for those kinds of humanizations to happen. And one of the concepts that I learned that really shaped the way I see the world is this concept of everyday peace. That instead of, when we look at how a nation can move towards a more peaceful existence, we tend to look at it from the top. This president signed this paper, or this prime minister agreed with that prime minister, or something like that. But what everyday peace looks at is how do people within, especially conflict areas, find ways to live in peaceful coexistence already. So in other words, like for example, I remember this researcher that I read was looking at how a tenement building in near the border of kind of Israel-Palestine, which had shared residents, how folks in the hallways were engaging with each other and what their strategies were to engage with each other more constructively. And so what's interesting about that is that the wisdom of coexistence typically already exists within the people. It's on us as leaders to pay attention to what's happening with individuals who are already doing some of this work. And how can we elevate that and empower that and create spaces for those stories to be told, and not put our focus on these, kind of folks at the top as going to be the ones that are going to make or break a peaceful world.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eric. Amazing presentation, amazing organization. Hart, thank you so much for being here today. Eric, you can come back up here because we're going to recognize you. So appreciate you being here today. We are making a gift in your honor to the United Way North Central Florida Alice Fund. I don't know if you're familiar with the Alice Fund, but I think it aligns well with some of the needs that you talked about. These are individuals who are asset limited, they are income constrained, but they are employed. And they fall above the poverty level, but still have needs that aren't met. And you spoke about some of those things. And so this is a gap. So we are, as an organization, are supporting that this year. And so we appreciate you being here today. And thank you so much for everything that you do. You're an amazing human being.
Thank you. It takes one to know one.
Thank you very much. So, well, somebody needs to grab a ticket out of there because I did forget that. So somebody could grab a ticket. Thank you, David. Put this up here. Nobody's rushing out because it's raining. So I don't feel too rushed, unless you're really looking to get drenched. Quote of the day. We're talking about alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. Helen Keller. So I think that's in keeping with what we did today. And the Reading Safari winning number is 789. 789. So if you have 789, come on up. And what I'd like to do is have everybody stand up. We're going to recite the four-way test to close our meeting. So, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. We are adjourned.